Hello, and welcome to Module 1. As you've probably seen by now, Module 1 is designed to give you an introduction to the ag marketing system. Really, it'll just kind of introduce you to the concepts that we're going to be exploring throughout the entire semester. So the first questions we have to ask ourselves is really, what is marketing? Now, when a lot of people think about marketing, you think about a very consumer perspective of it, and a lot of people confuse things and think that advertising is marketing. Well, yeah, advertising is a form of marketing, but marketing is much larger than just advertising. And when we talk about the ag marketing system, we're really talking about all of the different commercial functions involved with transporting these goods from a producer, from the farm stage, all the way out to the consumer. And we'll see that as we start through the system, when we're at the farm level, we're really working with commodities. We're working with things that are very similar to everybody else's. If I'm a producer, I'm producing corn. My corn is essentially the same as my neighbor's corn, as somebody's corn in Iowa. It's considered to be exactly the same. But as we go through this food system and we go to a first handler who's collecting all of this corn that we've produced into maybe a grain elevator, and then we move on to a processor who's changing the shape and the form, finally to a distributor or wholesaler, and finally out to a retailer, whereas the consumer can go out and purchase that food. I'm generally purchasing branded, differentiated products. I'm buying Pepsi. Pepsi has that corn in it in the form of high fructose corn syrup, but I can tell the difference as a consumer between Pepsi and Coke, or at least in theory, with regard to the package. Maybe not in the taste test, but at least in the package, I can tell the difference between those two things. And we've got somebody's name slapped on them. We've got a brand slapped on them. Whereas when we're producing at the farm level, in the vast majority of cases, we're producing simply commodities. And that adds a lot of complexity in terms of what our marketing alternatives are. And through this course, we're essentially going to be moving through this ag marketing system, and we'll look at how the alternatives we have in terms of marketing our commodities is different than the alternatives we have if we're a major food processor and we're marketing branded, differentiated consumer products to, of all people, consumers. So essentially, we're looking at this flow, and we've got farm supplies in the form of seeds or machines, tractors, equipment, chemicals, all those things coming into the farm level. We lose some of the food that's produced to at farm or on farm consumption, and then we lose some of the food produced to food that's sold directly to a consumer, typically from a farmer's market or maybe through a co-op. You'll purchase food directly from the farmer. But the majority of our food comes through this system where we have some assemblers and brokers, then we've got food manufacturers and processors, we finally get down to wholesalers, brokers, chain warehouses, then through our grocery stores or specialty food stores, all of that coming down to reach our consumers. And this is a pretty fascinating system, how efficient it works. And in some cases, as in the egg recall we're seeing right now, we'll see one incident bring up a lot of concerns with the changes that we've seen to our food marketing system over time. So essentially, if we look at this bigger definition of marketing, marketing's task is to convert society's needs into profitable alternatives. So we're looking, as a member of this system, we're looking at what it is that consumers want, and we're changing the food that we're producing to satisfy those needs. So we're meeting the consumer's demand, and consumers are essentially pulling those products through the system. So as we've seen a change in consumers' time, and we've got more families that have two parents that are working full-time, or maybe we've got more families that are single parent families. And we've got this crunch on consumers' time, so we've seen this vast shift towards more convenient food products. And we see that being done in this food manufacturing and processing stage where we're adding more value to that food product. Consumers are willing to pay more for it because they demanded it, and consumers essentially have changed the system. So these consumers are often called kings of the system in the sense that their demands are being satisfied by everyone in the system. So when we talk about these changes that are going on to the food or the commodity that comes into our system, we think about everyone in the system adding some sort of utility or some sort of value to the food that's being produced. And if you think back to your Ag Ec 105 course, we talked a lot about utility there, and utility just being an economist measure of satisfaction. So we're changing the form of the food through processing or packaging. We're changing the time the food is available. It doesn't matter that the particular food that we want to eat is harvested only once a year, through things like storage and even to a certain extent through transportation and its place utility. We're able to go down to H-E-B and purchase that particular food no matter what time of year it is. We also add some possession utility in the form of advertising and market news. When a new product comes out, I as a consumer may not realize I have a demand for it until I see it advertised on TV and say, hey, that looks pretty cool, I want to check that out. And then I go to the store and look for it. So someone in the system is creating that possession utility. So you'll hear me talk a lot about the ag marketing system throughout the semester, and you also see it in your text. But essentially we're talking about the system where we're going from farm supplies to production agriculture to processing and distribution, and this is typically several different stages before we finally get to consumption. And we've got all sorts of different influences that impact the system. The limited availability of resources in terms of capital and even human resources. We've got competition, changing the structure of the system. We've got interest groups with concerns that are trying to impact their influence onto our system. Technology has certainly changed how our food marketing system operates and even how we produce our agricultural products. And then human resources certainly plays a factor in this ag marketing system and how it's shaped. So why do we care about the system? Why do we devote an entire class to the understanding the ag marketing system? Well, to a certain extent, if you go into agriculture, you're going to be involved in this ag marketing system. Not necessarily just as a producer, but maybe on the food marketing side, maybe on the distribution or sales side, maybe through advertising, or maybe working at a retail level. There's a lot of different ways we become involved in the system. But beyond that, we're all consumers. We are all impacted by this marketing system. So a lot of us feel a personal responsibility to shape and regulate the food industry because it's fundamentally our health that we're concerned with. So why do we care so much about the ag marketing system? Why don't we just talk about marketing systems in general? Well, ag is unique for a couple different reasons and justifies looking at it separate from those. First, we're working with perishable commodities and products, things that are going to deteriorate if we don't consume them right away or if they're not refrigerated. We've got perishable products. We've got a pretty unique competitive structure in production agriculture. One of the things that we're going to see in Module 3 is that because of the fact we're working with commodities, we're essentially working in perfect competition. And we'll talk more about the perfect competition, but think back to Ag 105. And we talked about the different market structures, everything from perfect competition all the way out to monopoly. And ag is generally the best example of perfect competition. We've also got geographics that make ag unique. We can only produce certain things in certain places because of the weather, because of the soil requirements, because of rainfall, all sorts of different reasons. We've also got some seasonality. We've got a number of crops where we can only harvest once a year. We've got some biological nature of our products with regard to the fact that we're generally working with renewable resources rather than depletable resources like, say, oil. We're working with animals and plants that renew themselves according to their biological process. And that brings about some lags. If I wanted to go into, say, some of our fruit industries, if I was to buy some land, plant some trees, it may take 10 years for those trees to fully mature and me to start getting some fruit off of that. So that creates a very unique situation that deserves some special attention. So with regard to this class, we're going to be looking at all these different stages of the ag marketing system. We'll first take a little more formal look at ag marketing in your chapters 1 and chapter 3. As we move into module 2, we will begin reviewing some of these principles of microeconomics that were covered in Ag 105 that will be important for your understanding and analysis of the ag marketing system. But we'll also begin talking about the different roles of marketing, some price theory, and some marketing applications throughout the system. Again, I'm looking forward to going through this. Hopefully you find the reading materials for this module 1 to kind of get your taste buds wet and just kind of give you an overview of what to expect, what to look forward to as we go through the semester. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will look forward to seeing you online.